Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to episode 25 of Direwolf20's Server Play series on Forgecraft2. I have 34 of the required 37 Enderium blocks that are required to get going. Ooh, I almost have enough. I think I actually do have enough now for 37. There we go. Nice. Maybe almost 2 more Enderium, which should still be cooking up. It takes a long time to craft this stuff, as you guys can probably guess, but there's the 2 I need, I think, so let's get that made. Nice, 37 Enderium blocks. That's a lot of Enderium. Needs a lot of Ender Pearls. Now, granted, you could build this reactor with other types of metal, with all kinds of different properties, but I'm trying to build the most efficient turbine possible. So, that's basically what we're looking at here. Also, how's my energy use doing over here? Yeah, we're using around 1600 RF per tick to keep the base going. And I assume that a lot of that is like some of the machines running and the crafting of the Enderium still. So a few things that'll probably settle down after a little while. Right now, we can see that our reactor is set up, and I've replaced the code for my reactor. I'm pretty excited to show you guys. I wrote the program. It seems to be working well in my single player test world. We're going to test it on the server today and see how we make out. So there's a few things we're going to need to do before we can get started. First, we're going to have to convert this reactor from a energy producing reactor to a steam producing reactor, and it's a really easy change to make. And what it'll do is, instead of directly producing energy, it'll produce steam, and then that steam will be dumped out into the turbine, and then the turbine will start spinning up. And the faster the turbine spins, the more energy it has the ability to create. The most steam that a turbine can accept is 2,000 millibuckets per tick. Now, if you want to decrease that so that it, runs a little bit slower, that's fine. But keep in mind, the most it can do is 2,000 millibuckets per tick. And we're going to build a super efficient system today that should produce lots of power. I've also made changes to my Computercraft code that makes it even easier for those of you not familiar with Computercraft to use it. So hopefully it works out pretty well. I'd be interested to hear if anybody actually does download this code and use it in a reactor or turbine setup in their own worlds. Like, message me on Twitter or something and tell me, like, hey, I used your reactor program and it works, or it didn't work and I had problems, whatever. We'll take a look at what changes I've made to the program in a bit. The way it works, though, is it automatically detects whether this thing is set to output steam or not. If it's not set to output steam, it basically works the exact same way it did before. And you can see it's working now. Like, it's already the new program, but it looks no different. The only change that I did make is I added a plus and minus button over here. So when I insert fuel rods, I can increase by 1 at a time. Pretty cool, right? And, just adjust that. So that's the only change I made to the normal functioning of the program. Now for the turbine setting, well, we'll check that out in a minute. So let's finish building our turbine. So we're going to want to jump in here, make sure to hang on to this turbine glass, and we're going to want to place around the rotor blade here some Enderium. So you can see I'm placing it here. Basically what this does is it acts like a little bit of a brake. It locks onto the rotor blade and turns that rotational momentum, the rotor blade spinning around, into energy. So what's cool about the turbines is you can turn this lock on and off. So when it's locked, it's converting the rotational speed of the turbine spinning around into energy, and of course it slows it down a lot. But when it's not locked, it really doesn't slow down much at all. It slows down a little bit, of course, because it's not in outer space or something with no friction at all. But even so, I think there would still be friction. But you know what I mean. It's not completely frictionless, but it's pretty close, so you don't really lose much power when this thing's not locked. And all of this information is important for how I've built my Computercraft program. So let's go ahead and plug this guy in. I'm not even going to hook him up yet because there's a couple more things we need. We want to tap into a turbine power port. That's where we're going to be transferring our energy from. Now, one thing that I should note is how much energy this thing produces. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie. I think we're going to be producing around 25,000 RF per tick, which sounds pretty cool to me. I actually haven't tested if you can have multiple turbine power ports on a reactor or on a turbine. That might make it easier, but I was thinking I might need to get some of that top tier energy transport stuff. So let's see. Let's look at conduits here. We could use, if we wanted to, like the super top tier of energy conduit. Maybe it's not called conduit. Energy, let's search for that and see if we can find it in here. That's RedNet energy cable. I don't know what the limit is on that, but I don't think it's infinite. All right, let's go by mod name. Thermal dynamics. That's what I'm looking for. Are you gonna work here or what? Come on, NEI. All right, I'll be back in a minute once I get NEI working again. All right, guys, let's get started updating our system. First thing I want to make are some capacitors. You can see, oh, we actually have a few vibrant capacitors. Well, we have one vibrant capacitor bank in here anyway. That's cool. I thought I didn't have any of those. Well, that's all right. I can utilize this. So let's see. I need a vibrant crystal, which needs some vibrant alloy and some emeralds. Let's get a few vibrant alloys. Don't I have any of those? I should have some maybe in here. Oh, I have one. Looks like it's time to craft a few more. Let's make 10 of them. Sure, why not? There we go. And then I can get my vibrant capacitor, courtesy of this thing. One thing I'm thinking I might want to do is maybe disable the wireless charger for the time being, because I'd rather not have the wireless charger filling up the capacitors in my inventory. So we've already got one vibrant capacitor bank, which is almost full. That's cool. Let's make another one, courtesy of this and these. Sweet. So now we've got another vibrant capacitor bank. Cool. Let's go downstairs and install it. So you remember last time I told you guys that kind of an issue we had was that it measures the input-output a little bit differently. It only measures it based on the number you have here. So for example, if we were to come down here, and let's find out where I can plug in more vibrant capacitors. It's not going to make it easy on me, is it? I should be able to maybe place it here. And then another here. So that's a multi-block. It should expand, right? So now what we'll see is that the multi-block itself is outputting 1384, but the reactor is only saying 428 because it's basically dividing by 3. So I made a quick change to the code at the top that just says num capacitors. And if I change that to now there's 3 in the multi-block and I reboot, it should accurately measure the amount of capacitor or change in the capacitor number. So you can see there 1284, it's kind of matching the right number. So real simple change to the code, and of course the percentage should be correct, so we're at 62%. That looks like it's a roughly correct number. Wonder if there's like a, I guess the best I can see is like a percentage. That's neat. All right, so yeah, you can see we're right there at about 62%, and we're filling up pretty quickly. Nice. And or actually we're draining right now because we're below the threshold for it to turn the reactor on. So that's cool. Now the reason I wanted to add or change that is because we're going to be producing a little bit more than 25,000 RF per tick from our turbine here. So I wanted to make sure that our input-output on our capacitor could handle that. Cool. So let's go and see where we're at here. So this thing attaches to here. This guy's all through here. Okay. Looks good to me. So let's plug into... What I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to place 2 power outputs, one here, and if I can get over there, cool. I'm going to place the other one over here. It doesn't really matter where you put it. It's a multi-block, right? So you can kind of put it wherever you want. But I'm going to have the turbine power ports. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to use energy conduits, and they can transfer about 20,000 each. So if I place 2 power ports, then you know, we'll get about half the power going through this thing. You know, half each, right? So that should work out. So let's take a look here. So I should be able to tap in to my Ender Energy, and we'll put this guy in here, put this guy in here, and then we can connect these up and plug them into our main power line, which is running somewhere along here. I'll do it right here. That should work. Looks Looks like I'm going to need a few more energy conduits. Shouldn't be a problem though. I'm going to go craft those and then connect this up. Alright, so now that we've got the power conduits running out of the turbine, the next step is to convert our reactor and our turbine to get them working together. So I guess the other thing we're going to want to place in here, probably maybe in the middle. Not that it matters, like I said, but why not, right? Why isn't my magnet working? Oh, it's off. That's why. There we go. What I'm going to tap into here is, do I have the fluid port that I need? I do have the computer port, so I'm definitely going to want that thing placed somewhere. Probably turbine computer port here. Let's get ourselves a turbine fluid port. I should install an elevator or something, but... So we've got that stuff. Where's the turbine fluid ports? We're going to want probably 2 of these. So 1, 2. And we're also going to want a couple reactor fluid coolant ports, these guys. So this should also be doable. We'll get 2 of them as well. Oh, looks like we're going to need more reactor casings. Oh good, I can make that. Cool. So 1 more reactor coolant port, perfect. That's what I want. And I think we should be pretty much ready to go then. So let's go down here. I'm going to turn off my computer program. So right now it's running. It's doing its thing for power for the base. I think we've got enough power for the time being that we can hold over until we finish setting this up. What I'm going to do is install the following. First thing I want to do is remove all this Enderium. So the hotter the reactor runs, the better. So we're going to install or remove all this Enderium, which should basically allow for a hotter reactor, aka more steam production, aka better. So, removing the Enderium, but leaving the gold, because remember the gold is, keeping a balance between things. So let's see, I've got a few empty buckets here. I don't know exactly how many I need. I'm not actually too concerned. Oh boy, I don't want to be in there. Okay, let's go get ourselves a few more empty buckets, and I'll finish clearing this thing out. There we go. That should all be cleaned up now. So I should be able to just put everything else away. Let's put this away. I don't need any more of these or this or these. And that'll do. So there we go. We've removed all the Enderium. It should drain out completely. And then we're going to want some reactor casing to go back around here, just to reform the multi-block. This has not yet converted it into an actively cooled thing yet, by the way. In order for that to happen, there we go. We need to replace somewhere in this multi-block structure reactor coolant port. So if we were to maybe jump down here, I'm thinking this is as good a place as any to place one of the reactor coolant ports, and we're actually going to want 2 of them, and I'll explain why in a minute, but trust me, we're going to want 2. So reactor coolant port. One of them is going to be for the output of hot liquid, and in order to specify that, just hit it with a wrench and you'll see it's red. So hot liquids come out the red, cold liquids go in the blue. And if we go look at the controller interface here, we'll see that we now have some bars here for how much cold liquid is in there and how much hot liquid is in the reactor. So no longer, as a result of installing these things, will this reactor produce energy. It's now only going to produce steam. Cool. Let's get some liquid generation going. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is the following. Let's see here. I'm going to do this, this, that, and that should give us a nice basin for 1, 2, 3 blocks of water. And then we'll put liquid transfer node on there. That was supposed to go into the cold liquid port, but that's okay. We'll do it like that. And just to make things a little bit faster, we'll throw some speed upgrades into that thing and some world interaction upgrades. So hopefully this produces lots of liquid for us. You shouldn't need too much because we're going to basically have a closed loop system. You only need about 21 buckets of water in there. So what we've just installed should be sufficient. We're probably going to want some more speed upgrades. So I'm actually going to pull a lot of those out. I'll leave like a couple in there. And we'll just see if it's sufficient. If not, you know, we can always deal with it later. So next up, we're going to want to run, let's see, I don't know if I need much more by way of speed upgrades, but we'll leave it. See what happens. So over here, we've got our, we're going to want the 2 fluid ports, right? So let's put it here and here, actually. So turbine fluid port, and turbine glass back in the bottom. And we should get, nice, a formed multi-block. Good. From here, we're going to want to run stuff. Let me clear out this space. So just hit it with a wrench to change it from hot to cold mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to be inserting hot liquids like this. There we go. Okay, so hot liquid should get inserted there. I don't think this will really mess with anything, but I want to make sure we don't have any issues with the sorting and routing of stuff. So let's just do this. There we go, just to make things a little bit easier. That'll ensure we just don't have any problems, right? Okay, so next up we'll want cold water coming out. So that's this guy. He's going to send his cold water back this way. I'll actually have this down lower one more. So this will eventually basically form a closed loop system. And what that means is all the water is going to be kept within the reactors. We should never really need more water, but I'll keep it going in the transfer node here just, you know, to make things a little bit easier. So for speed upgrades, we're probably going to want to have this guy have a bunch of speed upgrades just to make it easier to transfer the liquid, the steam, all the way over to here. And this guy can have a bunch of speed upgrades as well to make it fast for transferring the cold water back. And if I need more, I need more. We'll kind of figure it out when we turn it on. In my test world, I had like a bunch, but it's a little bit different from my setup there, so we'll see if we really need a lot. And I think we're ready pretty much to turn it on. So I'm not going to do anything with computers yet. What I'm going to do is show you the interface here. So we've got engage coils, disengage. I'm going to have the coils currently be turned off. We want the turbine to be active, and you can see that it is active now. However, there's no speed or there's no steam going into there, so there's no running of the reactor. Let's turn this reactor on, and he should start producing a bunch of steam. Cool. Now let's let him get nice and hot here, and we'll see if some of the water production kind of balances out to a point. So if we come over here, we'll see that our rotor's starting to run. We're not really doing too good on steam getting over to our reactor. It's not keeping it filled over there. So we might need, I think we'll definitely need, well, we're starting to get more water going in here. So we'll probably need more speed upgrades. How are you, steam? We're getting there. Let's make a few more of those speed upgrades. I'm going to see about making like a stack of them. There we go. Cross your fingers that this works. So it's really the the steam's not moving fast enough. So let's put like another half a stack of speed upgrades in there. You really need to transfer a lot of steam. It's like 2,000 millibuckets per tick, so makes sense. All right, we're keeping the steam nice and empty now. How about you? Might need to make you a little bit faster. And this thing should be faster. More water at a time. That should also help out. Yeah, we're getting there. All right, that might be pretty darn close. How about this thing? Still a little bit shy. All right, let me play with speed upgrades for a bit and get us to the point where we have enough. All right, guys, we're back. I decided to change it up. Instead of doing like a bunch of speed upgrades and stuff here, I'm going to do tesseracts. So let's do that. I think tesseracts can transfer liquids pretty darn quick. So hopefully that'll be good. So I made a couple of these. We'll call this dire steam. We'll call it frequency 12. I don't know. Sure, why not? And it will be sending fluid. Cool. And we will say ignore redstone. Cool. So dire steam, frequency 12, sending fluid. Let's get this guy over here on. And if this works, then cool. So we'll say dire steam, receiving fluids. See if that's better. Just gotta turn the reactor on, activate. And we're still not really producing enough water to keep this thing going. So let's put more world interaction upgrades in here, which I swore, well, I'm gonna do speed upgrades since I can. Look in the turbine dire. Uh-oh. Thought I made more world interaction upgrades, but I guess I didn't. Maybe I put them away. I did. All right, let's see if that's producing enough water for me now. Still not really quite. See what I need about needing like a good amount of water? All right, back in a minute. All right, there we go. Just had to rearrange a few things downstairs. So, as you can see, we've got enough water, we've got enough steam, and hopefully this thing, the amount of water in here is gonna, constantly fluctuate. Turbine kind of running at, a decent RPM. The coils are not engaged at the moment, so you can see they're currently disengaged, which is why we're pretty much losing power. However, if I engage the coils, we should start generating, looks like we're at about 8,000 RF per tick right now. If we come over here and see, yeah, we're getting right around there. Nice. I'm going to jump on TeamSpeak with Fireball and then come back. All right, guys, we're back. So let's turn on the computer and see what kind of cool stuff we can do. The only thing we're going to need is the modem and such. So here with Fireball and T-Love and Glass Pelican, and I think we're all just hanging out. What's going on, guys?
Pretty good.
I'm here to steal your computer program. I mean, look at your computer program.
Yeah, you have to tell me what you think. So now for me to demonstrate the coolness of the computer program that I wrote, which I'm like super proud of. So let's run over here, tap into the turbine port. Just give that guy a right click to activate it. And just got to connect into the there we go. You ready to check it out?
I am indeed.
All right, here's how the computer program works. When we start the program, the first thing it's going to do is crash. Attempt to index a no value. Hang on, let me figure out why. All right, let's try it again. So the first thing it should do is try and figure out the most efficient rod insertion level for the reactor. So what it does is it gets the reactor up to about 100 C, and then it lets it run at 99% fuel rod insertion, which is like the most you can insert a fuel rod, right? Once it does that, it kind of calculates what fuel rod level to be at in order to get close to 2,000 millibuckets of tick per steam. So remember, steam turbines can only accept 2,000 millibuckets per tick. right? So in order for this to work, what we want to do is get close to 2,000 millibuckets per tick. We definitely want to be above it. So it gets like a rough number, and then it finds the right one. So it got close. Right now you can see we're right about 1,900 millibuckets per tick at 70%. And if we bump it up to 69%, you can see it's telling me we're producing 1966 millibuckets per tick of steam. So 68% fuel rod insertion is probably where we're going to want to be to get 2,000. Once it detects that, it should switch on. Cool. Nice. It's automatically in automatic mode, and you can see we have new buttons at the bottom now. A reactor button and a turbine button. The reactor button works exactly the way it used to before. We can flip it to manual mode if we want, and we can change the fuel rod insertion level any way we want. Flipping it back to automatic mode, by the way, will automatically switch it back to what it detected earlier as its most efficient fuel rod level, which is 68. It only does that calculation when you first start the program, because it assumes that you're not going to be changing your reactor design while the program's running. If you do change your reactor design, just restart the program and it'll automatically recalculate for you. Cool? So that is the turbine so far. Now, if we want to check out what the turbine's doing, we just hit the turbine button on the bottom. Boom. And you can see that we've currently got the energy, the turbine is online, so it changes the information at the top. It tells you turbine is online as opposed to reactor is online. And instead of telling you how much steam the reactor is producing, the temperature, and the fuel use, it now tells you for the turbine the RF generation, which is currently at 12,000 RF, the rotor's RPM, which the optimal RPM, by the way, is 1,800 RPM. So we want to get there. And the current amount of steam being used per tick, which is at the moment 2,000 millibuckets, which is good because that's where we want to be. So we'll let this thing go. And it'll work just like it did before in automatic mode. Is when we get to a certain energy stored amount, it'll automatically, what it'll do is it'll disengage the coils, meaning that the turbine can keep spinning, so it won't be wasting energy and it won't be wasting rotational speed. And it'll try and keep the turbine right around 1,800 RPM. So we'll see that in a few minutes when we get to that level. We can also switch it to manual mode here, and what that'll do is it'll show you whether or not the turbine is online and the coils are engaged. So if I want, I can disengage the coils here, and you'll see that now we're no longer producing RF. The rotors are going to speed up a little bit faster, which is good. Or I can turn the coils back on, and you can see the color of the little picture on the bottom turns from blue to red, because I thought those were cool colors. And I'll just switch it back to automatic mode now, and we'll let it run. There we go. And you can see we're currently producing 15,000 RF per tick, and we're still getting closer to that magic sweet spot of 1,800 RPM. When we get closer to that is when we're really going to be producing a lot more RF. So basically, the same reactor is now going to produce a lot more RF, and it's going to use a lot less fuel, because instead of the fuel rods being inserted, zero, meaning it's using, as much fuel as possible, we're using about 1/3 the fuel that we were using before. So way more efficient by building this steam system. We're using 1/3 the fuel, and we're going to wind up producing about twice as much power. So I don't think there's any complaints that we could ever have about that. It sounds pretty good. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back. So you can see that we just switched to the turbine rotor things being offline. So we just went above that 90% threshold. That's when it switches off. You'll notice, however, the reactor remains online. The reason for that is, remember I told you the magic number for your turbine rotor is around 1,800 RPM? So what it does is, when it doesn't need to run for power generation, what it will do is it'll keep the reactor running so that the rotors can speed up to about 1,800 RPM. Once it hits 1,800 RPM, it'll turn off the reactor, basically saving fuel a massive amount, and the rotor is going to very slowly slow down. Once it dips below 1,800, it'll quick turn on the reactor again. So you'll notice we just bumped above 1,800 RPM. If we look at the reactor now, it should switch offline pretty soon. At some point. Come on, reactor, offline. Oh, you know what? That might be, let me try something real quick. I'm going to put this in manual mode. I want to get it above 90%. I think that's why that's happening. And that's a bug that I'm going to have to fix then. So by the way, you can see we're now producing 23,000 RF per tick. Woot. So if I switch it to automatic now, it should maybe turn off the reactor. Yes, reactor is offline. Nice. So that's a little bug I have to fix. But basically, it'll keep the reactor on until the rotor hits about 1800 RPM, and then it'll turn off the reactor. You can see we're no longer getting any more steam. The steam level's at 0 because the reactor's off. Cool. Now for power, we want to get more than 20,000 RF per tick, and we can get it. If you look under here, Fireball, what I did, Fireball was just asking me how I'm going to handle that. I've got 2 connections for power underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And if I plug 2 connections for power into our capacitor, that should work because it's 20,000 RF per connection, not per cable. So it should allow for more RF income on the thing as a result.
Oh, I didn't know it was per connection.
Yeah, so if I put this back in manual mode here and engage the coils, you should see that we're now gaining over 20,000 RF per tick. Remember, our base is using about 1,000, so that's the discrepancy between energy use and RF gen. Pretty cool?
Indeed.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought so.
It's definitely something I can never do.
All right, guys, so let me do a couple bug fixes in the code, and what I'm going to do then is come back next episode. We should have everything fixed. I'm just going to let it work for a couple days, make sure there's no issues with it, and then I'll paste spin it for you all so you have a copy. So for now, Direwolf20 signing off. Hope you enjoyed the episode. We will come back next time with more fun playing around with big reactors. I think we've got a pretty decent amount of power now. We shouldn't have too much of a concern around running our Enderman farm and all that stuff. So 25,000 RF per tick is the theoretical range of where we're going to be, give or take. So you can see our RPMs are slowing down a little bit. It's very slow, but it's like 0.1 RPM every 5 or 10 seconds. So it'll take a while to dip below 1800. When that happens, it'll kick on the reactor and, get it above 1800 again and then kick off. All right, guys. Direwolf20 signing off. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Take it easy.